Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Hello, we're back again.
Yeah, and I am a wolf I'm a sheep in wolf's clothing. Jesus talks a lot about wolves in sheep's clothing. I'm a sheep in wolf's clothing.
Duran Duran.
I don't know. Is that a song that they did?
Yeah, they did Hungry Like the Wolf.
Oh, right, Hungry Like the Wolf.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I was like, I don't remember one about sheep. And you confuse me so much.
It's
with your
really
musical
sad
knowledge.
when the young 18-year-old makes an 80s reference and the 40-plus-year-old guy who lived through that time just misses it.
Well, I missed it because I honestly didn't know that was Duran Duran that sang that song. Because that's
that
me.
sounds about right. Yeah, that's you.
I'm really that bad at music. I mean,
Yeah.
I could I count on this hand how many songs that I know the name and the artist both of a song, even the ones from.
Before you said artist, I was going to question church songs, but then once you brought an artist, I was like, none of them.
No, I mean church songs. I mean, who wrote the church songs? I don't know. I know the titles of them, but
John, whatever his name is.
that's
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace.
John Newton?
John, what's his name?
Newton. John
Yeah.
Newton.
John
John
that's,
Newton. Yeah, John
but-
Newton.
Yeah.
He likes figs.
He's dead.
Liked figs.
Liked figs. I didn't know he liked figs. Okay.
No, it's
Glad he
Fig
liked.
Newtons.
That's a totally different Newton, I think.
Isaac Newton. Figs.
He was more with apples.
They have apple Newtons too.
Yeah.
Isaac Newton, apple Newtons.
Okay, can we get to
Fun
our
fact,
topic?
apple Newtons were actually the first because of Isaac Newton.
No.
The fig ones
that's-
came later.
No, that's no.
100% historically accurate. So anyway, we are back
Don't fact check
with-
that.
to fact check that because
There's no need. It's not true.
Yeah, but still, there are some things in the world that are less stupidly obvious than me that
and
need
people
to be
still
fact
believe
checked.
them.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
There's that.
we're back with another prayer thing.
Another prayer thing.
This one is by Hannah, not my sister, or
Your friend,
my friend.
or any of the
Or-
Hannahs I know,
no,
or any of the
no, no.
or any Hannah you know
Not those.
personally.
No.
I mean, no.
This one,
Hannah in the
like
Bible.
John Newton, is also dead. Okay,
Yeah.
and we don't know whether or not she liked fig
Oh,
Newtons.
She's not dead. She just went back home.
That's true. Okay, I'll give you that one. Fig Newtons,
Fig Newtons should be dead.
false.
No, no.
You can leave now.
The strawberry Newtons, apple Newtons, but
I was going to say we had a guest on my.
blueberry Newton.
I was going to say we have a guest on the show, my father James Pasley, but because of that previous comment, he's leaving now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So tell us if you like fig Newtons in the comments.
Yes. So this prayer is from 1 Samuel.
Hannah probably liked figs. Figs were a big thing in the Bible lands.
They were actually.
We have a fig tree, but it doesn't make figs.
No, it doesn't. It makes leaves.
It does make fig leaves.
We should change its name to a leaf tree.
Fig leaf tree.
So we have a lot this time. So
it's not really that much. I mean, we're not going to
no,
read
we'll
like,
probably
all of
skip
that.
around a
Yeah,
little
I
bit,
mean,
but yeah, should get going. 1 Samuel chapter 1 verses 11 through 13. And Hannah vowed a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your servant, and remember me and not forget your servant, but will give to your servant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and no razor shall touch his head. As she continued praying before the Lord, Eli, who was the high priest at that time, observed her mouth. Hannah was speaking in her heart. Only her lips moved, and her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli took her to be a drunken woman.
Yep. And he got onto her for it.
So, lesson number 1 here. Don't assume things.
That's right.
That, funnily enough, that's...
Appearances can be deceiving.
And funnily enough, that's the lesson that Hannah has learned pretty well.
Okay.
My friend Hannah.
Oh.
And so I just thought that was funny that kind of
don't
connects this.
assume
Yeah,
things.
don't assume things. That's a big thing in our conversations is
Don't
assume things.
And that's the
Got to
thing.
clarify stuff.
You know, that's the thing too when you're studying the Bible. Is
Don't
very
assume
important.
things.
Don't assume, because it was a different culture, it was a different time, and it was different. People were different, and so
Yes.
we don't assume. We look for what does it say, what does it actually imply and teach, and what's necessary from the text, and not just what we might think about how things. There are a lot of things though about the Bible where we make assumptions about how things are. We picture it in our head a certain way. You know, one example that just to throw this out there for everybody so they get an idea of it. When you think about Jesus' parents, his earthly parents, Joseph and Mary, heading to Bethlehem. Sorry, to Jerusalem. To Bethlehem.
Okay. Yeah, I can
Well,
picture it.
they went to Jerusalem too.
Yeah.
That was a different time. But before he was born. So Mary's pregnant, and Joseph is taking her, and they're going
Picturing
to Bethlehem.
Okay, there's a desert.
Desert.
There's a city
definitely.
off in the distance.
Yeah.
You know,
There's-
she's on a donkey.
She's riding a donkey.
It's just them, very
And he's
very
leading the
lonely.
donkey.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
desolate.
And yet, very, very unlikely that that's the way that worked. Now, she may or may not have actually been riding on a donkey because she was 9 months pregnant at the time, which, you know,
Yeah.
if he had the money for a donkey, being a good husband, I'm sure he would have had a donkey for her to ride if he could have
Which
afforded that.
actually, during that
Which they might
time,
have been able to. They were pretty poor.
But considering what was happening, it was everyone was supposed to be going back to their hometown.
Right.
And because of the way families worked back then, Joseph and Mary may have been traveling with
Well, if he
a
was
group
from...
of 50 of his
Yeah.
family members or
If
so.
he's from Bethlehem, then chances are pretty good that his family is from Bethlehem.
Yeah.
So, you know, they travel together. You know, they're not going to send a poor guy, a poor young married couple that aren't quite married. I don't know, you know.
Yeah, this awkward situation.
You're not going
all
to send
around.
this poor 9-month pregnant girl off alone on a trip across the countryside. They're not going to do that.
Bad planning.
That was not their culture.
Much shame.
There would have been women with her that were going to be there to help her with her child, with the childbirth, and
Yes.
yeah. So we have some very interesting, and
Okay.
you know,
So-
but you know, we have these pictures, so don't assume.
Don't assume, and that's a very difficult thing to do because we bring assumptions to everything, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
But do your best to cut down on those, especially with the Bible, because from a Western culture, looking at an Eastern culture, a lot of our assumptions are not right.
Middle Eastern culture,
Yes.
Eastern culture is even a whole different thing too.
Yes.
I mean, so get into that.
So, the other thing that I think is interesting here, well, two things I want to talk about real quick is, first of all, she vows something, she makes a promise. We read in the New Testament to be very, very careful
Yeah,
about
that.
promises to God. And so,
Well, the Old Testament, it was a pretty serious deal
Yes.
too. I mean, it's not
So-
like that's new.
as we go through these, and we're kind of using these a little bit to show you how to pray, and so you can see how people in the Bible would pray and such.
Yeah, be careful when you're praying about promises.
Be very careful with promises.
Yeah.
Because God is a God who does not go back on his word. And likewise, if we're his followers and we're supposed to be like him, we should not either.
Yeah.
So if you make him a promise, you follow through on it no matter what.
Yeah, and think about that, because think about how many times in your life you've promised yourself that you were going to do something and then you didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is going to be my last cookie. 3 cookies later, this is going to be my last cookie.
See, when it comes to cookies, I just get off on the right foot and never think that to start with.
I know, but
I'm just like the
If you
last cookie in the box.
you
That's
get
my last
older
cookie.
and fatter like me, you have to start thinking about that, and but you got to follow through. But
New life resolution: never get older and fatter. One of those is a possibility.
Maybe.
I said possibility, not even probability, just possibility.
I guess theoretically.
Of course, theoretically, the other one's a possibility too. If I died right now, I'm not getting any older.
Yes, and you would not get older or fatter.
There you go.
I can.
If you want to stop getting
Do that
older
right
and
now.
fatter, die. No, don't do that.
Yeah, that is the alternative to getting old is dying young, and that's not a good alternative. So
Make a pretty corpse.
just get old. It's better
Unless
that way.
you're ugly while you're young like me, in which case you don't make a pretty corpse.
Oh.
So it's just lose all around.
So yeah, so yes, she makes a pretty bold vow, and it's interesting because in the Old Testament, if a woman made a vow to God, when her husband found out about the vow, he could say, "No, we're not doing that." Same thing, with if a child made a vow, the father could say, "No, you're not doing that." And so that was a very real possibility here, that even though she's vowed this vow, her husband, when he finds out about it, according to the law, has the right to say, no, not going to do that.
Of course, if you know the story, he didn't do that.
He did not.
But before we move on too much,
In fact, he said, "You do what seems best to you."
yes. Before we move on too much to that, a few other things I want
I
to point
noticed
out
she
here.
didn't tell him though. Right. I mean, she didn't tell him till like after the kid.
Yeah.
And she asked for the kid, and it's like way later that she asked. Anyway, sorry.
So, first of all, she's praying in her heart here. So, silent prayers, that's totally fine. There's biblical evidence of that right here. Doesn't have
Doesn't
to be
heard by anybody.
spoken. Personally, I prefer spoken prayer because I have a hard time of staying on the right track
Like that.
like that.
Even when you're
even when I am talking. And so, could you imagine how much of a mess a prayer would be for me if I was trying to do it all mentally?
It is true that forming the words does make you think about what you're actually going to say and say that, and that can be helpful, and especially early on in your prayer life, it might be very important, more so than later.
I read a book one time.
He read a book one time.
Did y'all know I could read? Yeah, it's so crazy. So of course this is not inspired. It was just a fictional story, but in this story, one of the main characters would write down prayers, which actually helps to focus things even more, because then you're not just going to wander around and stuff like you would when you're talking,
Like our
or when you're
videos
thinking,
do.
like our videos. So if this was like a texted, written out post on Facebook or something,
We would be able to
much more
edit it.
coherent.
We'd take out all the ums and all those times when you get your words mixed up and say the wrong thing, and then
But
then
see,
we wouldn't be able to use that as an example.
we can't do video editing very well, so we're just
Yeah.
kind of, here you go, have
we
fun.
could do
Sorry.
video editing. We
It's
just
just
would have
so
to get the software.
time-consuming.
Yeah, there's a lot of time involved.
Yeah. And I've got,
And besides, this makes it more real.
yes, I've got senior year of school, he's got a job, and we're trying to work together on this, so
Trying to find time to do these is
there's
Tough
barely
enough.
enough time to record these without having
to do
also
an hour
edit
of
them.
editing every 10-minute show or
Yes.
15-minute show.
10 minute. When have we done one of those 10
Well,
minutes?
but I'm saying every 10 minutes of
Yeah.
the show.
I got you.
An hour for every 10 minutes of the show.
Okay. Other thing that's interesting here is in her prayer, she doesn't say me or I or anything
Oh,
like that.
I right there.
Yeah, once.
I will.
But
give
most
him
of the
to
time,
Lord.
it is your servant, your servant, your servant. Remember your servant. Look on your servant.
Yeah, she
These sort of
looks at
things.
herself.
It is a
Humbly.
very humble prayer, which is very good for us to look at and take some aspects of that.
Yeah.
But at the same time as her humility, we've talked about how important and strong a promise to God is, how bold that is. You can see that here.
Yeah.
She's got her boldness of the promise and the humility of
too.
God, I am your servant, constantly. And so that really helps reinforce on some of the topic videos when we talk about
Right.
having boldness and humility in prayer.
Here she is.
There you go.
Yeah.
It's
Hannah's
right
a great
there.
example of that. And the other thing here too is this is not the whole prayer. Verse
Yes.
12 says, as she continued praying. So this is kind of the nuts and bolts of the prayer. This is the main thing she was asking God for. but we have no
This
idea.
is the outline of the sermon.
Not even that. This is just like one main point.
Yeah.
We don't know what all else she said in the prayer. You know, she may very well have praised God for things. She may have asked him for other things. May have asked, you know, she was having trouble with her husband's other wife picking on her. She may have asked God to help her with that. You know, she may have asked for patience. She may have, you know, there's no telling what all else but we know this is the thing that the Bible focuses on, because this is the one that's important to the story of the Bible.
Very much.
And yeah, so then a few verses later, we read, after they go back home, that after a while, she does conceive and she has a son. She names him Samuel. Probably knew that already. And she said, because I have asked for him from the Lord. Now remember, again, I think we've talked about this before, but all of the Jewish names, the Hebrew names that have L in them, like Samuel, the L is a reference to God.
Yes.
In some way. So there's a lot of those in the Bible. You have Ezekiel, Joel, Daniel, you know, all of these that have L, it's meaning something about God. So apparently Samuel means something like asked from God or something like that. I don't know the specifics of, you know, of that particular Samuel part, but L is the God part. And so what are we humming a song?
Sorry.
I don't know.
We're sitting on my bed again, and sometimes when he moves, it makes me bounce up and down a little bit.
Bouncy.
And when I did that, my head just started nodding, and I noticed
they might have
was,
thought we were sitting on those bouncy exercise balls.
Gandalf epic jazz music.
Okay. But what about Eli's epic music that he played at the tabernacle? No.
I don't see that anywhere in here.
Good, because it's probably not there.
Different section.
So anyway, so then after she has the child, and her husband Elkanah is going to go up and pay his vow, go up and make his sacrifice for his
and
things.
She does not go with him.
Nope.
And so she says, you know, I want to stay here, and I'm going to go later and present the child to the Lord when he's
going to
weaned.
just stay there forever.
And he's just going to be there.
And he looked at her like she'd grown a second head. No, he looked at her and he said, you know what? You do what seems right to you. And so he was okay. Now you think about this. She promised to give away her firstborn child.
Yeah.
Firstborn child. I don't know if he was boring or not. But firstborn child. My firstborn child was right here. But
I exist?
So she promised to give him away without even talking to her husband about it. You know, that's, I mean, woo. So yeah, he might have been very, very angry about that, but apparently not so. Yeah. And we see that this is answers, and she does, you know, when he's weaned, she takes him. The child was a young whippersnapper, and went and lived with Eli at the temple.
As opposed to a child that's an old whippersnapper.
Yeah. We tend to get old and cantankerous and not be whippersnappers anymore.
Is cantankerous the opposite of whippersnapper?
I know they're synonyms. It's just young whippersnappers grow up to be old cantankerous people.
Okay.
That's kind of the way that works.
Well, I know some young cantankerous whippersnappers.
Yeah, maybe. So anyway, God answers her prayer. And one of the reasons for that is, I mean, obviously this is leading to his plan for Israel.
God has a plan. Do you know that?
And has a plan for all of us.
It's a miracle. Miracles were involved at one point, actually.
And whether this was a miracle or not.
True.
It was certainly an answered prayer. Mm-hmm. And God certainly still answers prayers. Yes. So we need to be praying for things as well.
He doesn't necessarily use miracles to do it. Sometimes
it's just providence.
It just happens.
Yeah. And here, we see, sometimes we're like, oh, well, I can't pray about this or I can't pray about that. This was important to Hannah, so she prayed about it, and God answered her prayer because he cared about her. And he answers it, too, because he's promised them these kinds of things. He tells them back in Leviticus, also in Deuteronomy. But in Leviticus 26, in verse 3, he says, if you walk in my statutes and observe my commandments and do them, then I'm going to give you the rain in the right season. I'm going to give you the land that will yield its full increase. The trees of the field yield their fruit, and so on. He goes through all these promises. Down in verse 9, he says, and I will turn to you and make you fruitful and multiply you, and I'll confirm my covenant with you. And so God does that with Hannah. She's obedient to him. She's coming to worship him at a time. Remember, this is the time of the judges. Remember what we talked about the judges. This not a time when a lot of people were being faithful to God. And yet Hannah is. Hannah's very devoted.
We have to end it at 2020.
Oh, no.
Man. I'm going to have to end one of these at 2020.
Never.
Perfect.
No, let's skip 2020. We can end it at 2021, but not 2020.
No.
Oh, anyway. All right.
There is no 2021. There is only 2020 overtime. Until someone wins the game.
2020 Part 2.
Yes. The sequel.
Next year. 2020 Part 2. All right. So, yeah, hopefully we've learned a lot from Hannah, and she's a good example. In fact, the next prayer that we're going to look at will be one of Hannah's prayers, because she does something very smart. She goes back and thanks God after he gave her what she asked for. And so we'll look at that next time.
And if you're in the South, you're familiar with that practice where you ask somebody for something for your birthday, and they give it to you on your birthday, and then you have to send them a thank you card. Very Southern tradition.
At least you have to. At least you have to say thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, I feel like there are some families in the South that would bless your heart if you didn't send out thank you cards for certain things.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wish people wouldn't give you stuff, huh? So then you got to write thank you cards.
Yeah.
All right.
Like, I have enough things already.
Don't give me anything.
If
I'll have to write a card.
If you want to give me something, just, drop some socks off at Goodwill. I'll pick them up at some point.
Just wish me a happy birthday. That'll do. Just fine. All right. So hope that we've enjoyed learning about Hannah's prayer, and hopefully we can learn a lot of things from it. It's amazing sometimes. We read these things and sometimes we don't. There's so much in there.
Yes.
That we can learn.
There's actually something else that I saw at the beginning that I didn't even bring out because we're basically out of time.
Wait, you didn't bring it up at the beginning because we were out of time?
I didn't bring it up at the beginning because we were running out of time. And
18
then
minutes ago?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Well, that sounds good, though.
Yeah. I'd actually still bring it out if you want.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Bring it!
So, at the beginning, she says, and no razor shall touch his head.
Oh, yeah.
Sounds very Nazarite vowish sort of thing.
Yeah, the indication is that he was a devoted Nazarite all his life.
Yep.
Which seemed to be kind of a common thing. I mean, Samson was a Nazarite. Now you got Samuel was a Nazarite.
John the Baptist.
Yeah.
Also a judge of Israel.
Yeah. In a very different way.
Yeah, kind of.
He was preparing the way for the Lord, So yeah. That's I guess those are the only three that we know of that specifically are named that I can think of.
Paul took the Nazarite vow for a short period of time.
It wasn't a Nazarite vow. He shaved his head, and that was a different vow. That was like a cleansing vow type thing.
It was called the Nazarite vow, though.
When did it?
I'm pretty sure in Acts he says.
I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, so
I know Paul took a vow with some.
Maybe we'll do a little exposition series on the Nazarite vow and what's up with
other vows. They made a lot. There was a lot of different vows that people made.
Yeah. So, if you have liked this video or utterly hated it, then please give a comment about Fig Newtons down below. Either way, just Fig Newtons. There was no Bible in this. It was all a Fig Newton discussion, just subliminal message. No,
it's not about.
Fig Newtons are everywhere, and all of Owl City's songs are secretly
nobody
about
buys
bagels.
Them. They're everywhere because nobody buys them.
No. See, if nobody bought them, then they would only be in grocery stores.
Nobody eats them. That's why they're everywhere.
Oh, okay, that fits a little bit better.
Yeah.
So yeah. And if you would like to watch other things on this channel, spam's okay.
They made their first batch of Fig Newtons back in 1940, and pretty soon they may have to make their second batch.
But I mean, if they just cut all of those out of one long thing, imagine how long that first cookie would have had to have been for them to have gotten.
I didn't say they only made one cookie. I said one batch.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. So anyway, we have other videos on the channel about prayer and Bible and
And we hope to add some other things. We were
Yes.
talking today about
Yeah.
getting back to some of the other things. Some more lighthearted, fun ones. Maybe some little short things. Some educational things about various
Short
different
things. I have 2 sisters that are 8.
They're pretty short.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun.
We'll just take a
oh,
we'll just
can
take
you
a
imagine
5-second clip of Hadassah talking and just be like, here's a short enjoyable thing for you.
seven sentences half completed in a 5-second clip. And then we could take a video of Hannah
That's my littlest sister.
for 5 seconds. the two of them would make quite a. Oh, can you imagine doing videos with? That'd be fun.
Nothing has happened in the past 5 minutes, and I'm not sure why this video is still going.
Because you haven't pushed
Check
that little
other things
right
and-
there. See, I'm push that
No, check other things and comment about things if you enjoy
and
it. or
share it
don't.
with other people.
Yes, do that.
Yay!
Bye.
Bye.